for all things Halloween. This is hauntformer, and it is the spooky season, which means pumpkin spice lattes, leaves falling from the sky, and of course, everyone's favorite, spooky movies. You probably see a lot of them around this time of year, especially the big hitters. Halloween, The Exorcist, The Shining, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you know, the classics, right? Well, the thing is, a lot of people ask me, what horror movies should I watch that are not the status quo? Maybe recommendations that are a bit different. Well, you're in luck, because I started this series last Halloween season talking about underrated, slept on, and forgotten horror movies, and I am back to deliver because we are once again joining the cult of the cults to look at some cult classics or forgotten classics that really deserve your attention. If you didn't watch the previous 2 episodes, please do, because 10 other movies were featured, and now we jump in to 5 more.
Daddy, don't you love me anymore?
1408, directed by Michael Hofstrom.
So you remember like 2 seconds ago when I was talking about those classic horror movies and mentioned The Shining? It's a great movie. One of my favorites, in fact. And it's a great example of Stephen King utilizing a haunted hotel. Well, what if I told you that it isn't the only haunted hotel movie by Stephen King? Believe it or not, there's another. Oh yes, 1408. Now, this movie is not based on a full novel of King's, unlike The Shining. It's based on a short story, actually, from his anthology book, Everything's Eventual. It's a great read, by the way. I highly recommend it. Really well done story, as King always delivers. But the movie is really good, too. It follows a horror author by the name of Mike Enslin, who checks in at the Hotel Dolphin. He is an author that writes about those, apparently haunted places, though he doesn't necessarily believe. He then tries to stay in the haunted hotel room 1408, but is warned by the manager of the hotel, played by Samuel L. Jackson, to not stay, as multiple people have actually ended their own lives in that very room. But he persists, for the sake of his book, and trespasses into 1408. What occurs is not exactly a typical haunting that you'd see in a lot of haunted house or haunted hotel movies. Instead, the room itself is antagonistic, similar to the Overlook Hotel. It creeps into the psyche of Mike and starts to drive him crazy, distorting reality and changing the very fundamentals of what's going on in the room. It's a really wild ride, a really well done movie, well acted and everything, and a really great vibe and creepiness for your Halloween viewing pleasure.
I'm gonna scare the hell out of you.
Stephen King's Maximum Overdrive.
Let's keep on the spooky Stephen King trend and talk about another kind of forgotten Stephen King movie. I mean, that is kind of the point of this list, is to talk about forgotten movies. Let's talk about Maximum Overdrive. Now here's the thing, Maximum Overdrive is a bit more remembered in the cult status than maybe 1408, but I still don't hear about it a ton, and when I do, it's usually kind of laughed at. Now, while Maximum Overdrive is an insane ride of a movie, pun intended, it's in no way lesser than a lot of other great classic movies that I've seen. Though it's not entirely horrific in the traditional sense of the term. This movie is actually the only one directed by Stephen King himself, and it kind of shows. It's a little chaotic and all over the place. And I believe he was probably on drugs at the making of this movie. It is based on his short story Trucks, which is also a pretty good read. Not maybe as good as 1408, but it's still pretty good. And it follows a really interesting concept of the apocalypse. Instead of just robots taking over and walking the streets, the robots come in the form of machinery, specifically trucks, semi-trucks, vending machines, lawnmowers. They just all go berserk one day and literally try to kill everyone on the planet. Now in the story, it's a little more vague as to why or how this happens. In the movie, it's because of a meteor, and kind of the movie gets wrapped up in a very, I don't know, quick wrap-up that I don't think really packs the same punch as the story kind of entails, this event lasting for a long time. But that being said, what happens in Maximum Overdrive is that a bunch of people find themselves at this rest stop, this truck stop. They can't get out because literally the building is being circled by these killer semi-trucks. One in particular, from a toy store, has a giant goblin on the front. You've probably seen that goblin before on a t-shirt or, you know, just in a horror compilation of some kind. It's a pretty iconic image, but the heart of this movie is literally about machinery killing people. There's literally a scene where a vending machine shoots Coca-Cola and kills somebody with it. I can guarantee you that you will have a crazy time watching this movie. Is it high art? Is it the best spooky thing that you could watch? No. But is it a fun ride? Very thrilling and kind of creepy? 100%. Plus, didn't even mention this, the whole soundtrack is done by AC/DC. So yeah, you know the vibe.
Come and play with us forever and ever.
Hey, don't blame me for sticking on the Stephen King kick in this video, okay? He's got a lot of great stories and movies to his name, and not all of them are remembered as fondly as, say, well, The Shining, Carrie, Cujo, Pet Sematary. What about, well, I'm gonna go back to The Shining. I guess I'm really into The Shining right now. But what about Dr. Sleep? This is a really more modern movie than a lot of the others that I've talked about in this series of videos. But the thing is, I feel like Dr. Sleep was forgotten even before it started. And that's really unfortunate because I know what you're thinking. How can you possibly make a sequel to The Shining? King wrote it, and I haven't read the book. I heard it's really good. And the movie, directed by, I believe, Mike Flanagan, who also directed The Haunting of Hill House and later Midnight Mass. Mike Flanagan offers a really interesting look at this story, which follows Danny Torrance, the son of Jack Torrance, Jack Nicholson's character from that original film, as he's an adult now, and he still has these powers of the shine, and he's trying to live with them and lead a life, but at the same time, he keeps getting dragged back into ultimately evil people using the shine for bad, just as the hotel did when he was a kid. Now here's the thing. Stephen King has gone on record many times and has stated that he's not a fan of Stanley Kubrick's movie, which I love the movie to death, but as a writer, I can understand when your idea in your head is changed into something that you didn't expect. I can understand why you'd get a little PO'd about it, but I think Mike Flanagan really loved that movie, as most people do. And so, what he did is he kind of took a hybrid of King's book, Kubrick's movie, and married them, if you will. The movie captures a lot of the imagery from the film, but takes a lot of the story beats from the movie and combines them. Most of it works, some of it's a little jarring. I'm not really a fan of kind of the blue light up eyes and kind of characters from the first movie grabbing on to Danny at the end. Spoilers a little bit, but don't worry, you'll get there. It's a long ride, but worth it. Very much worth it. Because if you're a fan of The Shining, I think you want to stick around to see what happens to Danny. The only thing I gotta say about this movie is be prepared for the blue. It has a blue filter and it looks really strange. I don't know what the color correctionist was doing, but it's just not it, man. I don't know what to tell you. But watch Dr. Sleep. Really interesting story. Keeps the continuity of The Shining and offers a new, fresh story with some really graphic scenes.
You can't make me kill her.
22 years later, Norman Bates is home. Psycho 2.
Alright, I'm done with Stephen King, at least for this video, but I'm sure he'll come up again in the future. I want to talk about, though, another sequel. Kind of unorthodox for me to talk about sequels on this list, but I think it proves true for an underrated classic like Psycho 2. Here's the thing. Like The Shining, Psycho is a classic, iconic horror film that you should not touch with a 10-foot pole, okay? When I heard that there was a Psycho 2, I said, no, sir. No Psycho 2. I refused to watch it for many, many years, but I just got around to seeing it, and guess what? It's really good. I couldn't believe it. It is written by Tom Holland, the good Tom Holland, not Spider-Man. I still like that Tom Holland, but the Tom Holland that made Child's Play and Fright Night and a lot of those classic horror movies, he actually wrote this film, Psycho 2, which follows the character of Norman Bates as he is released from his asylum where he was at the end of the original Psycho and tries to lead a normal life, knowing that he has this issue switching to his mother's side. But the thing is, not everyone is as forgiving as the legal system, and there's kind of a plot to get Norman to snap again. Very interesting movie, very interesting premise, a little confusing in parts, but the thing is, it's a great mystery, and for being a sequel to one of the greatest films of all time, it really lives up to the tone and to the character progression of the Hitchcock classic. Really crazy that a movie from 1983 can capture what Hitchcock did in the 60s. It's worth a watch, definitely. It's a bit more graphic than the original Psycho, obviously, and a little more confusing in certain ways, a lot of twists and turns, but if you're in for it and you like thrills and chills, Psycho 2 is a really slept-on masterpiece. And finally, to wrap up this list of these forgotten movies, I want to talk about one that may not chill you to the core, but will deliver a spooky, fun treat for your viewing entertainment. Bubba Ho. With a name like that, you know it's gotta be good. It actually stars Bruce Campbell of Evil Dead fame as Elvis. Maybe the real Elvis, maybe not the real Elvis, we're not fully sure. The movie follows, well, if you know anything about Elvis, you know that he is no longer with us. He actually died on the toilet. Did you know that? You probably did. But Elvis actually faked his own death. He switched with an Elvis impersonator at a certain point in his career, and that impersonator was the Elvis that died on the toilet, and the real Elvis lived in a retirement home and had to fight a blood-sucking mummy. I'm not making any of this up. There's a mummy that tries to kill old Elvis in a retirement home, along with an elderly black gentleman who claims to be JFK. That is the experience that Bubba Ho will offer you. Is it a nail-biting, gripping thriller? No. Is it a cheesy, funny, wild ride about old Elvis and a black JFK fighting a mummy from ancient Egypt? Yeah, watch it. Please watch it. No one talks about this movie, and it's really funny, a little creepy, but very heartfelt and well written. I definitely recommend it, as I recommend all of these movies, really, because this is the time of year to watch something out of your comfort zone. Pick one of these, watch it, let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you want to see more of these or leave a suggestion for more forgotten classics, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, for all things Halloween, this is Hauntformer.